Hello, friends. Happy Friday. I'm glad to be with you all, even though it's a little bit later than planned. I had like crazy work stuff. I got delivered 2 hours of audio today that I had to read. I got it at 12:15 and it had to be done by 3 p.m. So I just finished it like 10 minutes ago. And that's wild. I've never worked that close to a deadline before, but I got it done. Yay. So I'm a little like this too. Just feeling like I hate that feeling of rushing. I hate that feeling of like, oh, I have so much to do and deadline. I always work very ahead of my deadlines. Like whenever I get work, I just do it immediately. So it's like done. Anyways, I don't normally do that. I'm not normally up to the last minute with things. But yeah, I know I did the poll yesterday, expired milk. See y'all later. I know I did the poll yesterday about what topics you all were interested in, and then somehow this came up. I was texting about it with my sister, and I was like, actually, this would make a really good stream topic. So we're gonna go over a couple of articles. We're gonna be talking about Lizzo. She's been accused of workplace sexual harassment or sexual harassment of her workers and other kinds of harassment and stuff. And I haven't read about it yet. I just know like the broad brushstrokes. And my initial reaction is to believe the complainants and to side with the worker versus management as you do. My background is that I have a master's degree in business law, and a big chunk of that was studying employment law. So I find this case really, really interesting. I also think it's going to be interesting from the perspective of what Lizzo has been accused of. Many men have been accused of the same thing, creating a hostile work environment, creating a work environment where sexual harassment is running rampant. And is the way that she will be treated by the media and by people on social media, will that be different because she's female versus if she was male? So that's another kind of interesting aspect of this whole thing. My personal opinion of Lizzo is I don't really have like that high of an opinion of her. I made a video about her last year. I can't believe it's already been a year since I made that video. It doesn't feel like that long, but I made a video about how she used the B word, and she just sort of uses it. I don't know if with impunity is the right word, but no shame to referring to herself or other women as the B word, which is a completely misogynistic term. I think a lot of the things she promotes are not really good. I actually am a believer in body positivity more so than other radical feminists. That might be a nuanced topic I talk about at another point. But her version of body positivity is very much the liberal feminist version of body positivity, which is that every body can be sexy, every body can be a sex object for men and stuff like that. And so I really don't agree with her on that. And also pushing that sort of sex positivity, hypersexualized version of women. Is it different because she's a larger woman or something? No, I don't really think it's good for any woman to be doing that. I don't think, instead of sexualizing larger women, maybe we should make it so that all women are less sexualized. So, anywho, Moon says, that was my thought too. She'll be dragged through the coals for something men do all the time and face no repercussions. So we're going to read the articles and see the details of what actually she's being accused of in this case. again, like I say, my natural inclination is to side with the workers over management, and to side with those who are accusing someone of sexual harassment. That, believe women. I do. So Lampress says, I agree our worth shouldn't be based on how sexually appealing we are to men. Blorbo says, I really liked the Lizzo documentary. Sad to hear about this stuff. Pucifer says, I feel like the solution should be to drag men through the coals too, not let Lizzo off easy. Agree. So if you're new to the Friday stream, welcome. I'm Lisa, your hostess. The way this works is I'm going to read an article. In this case, today we're going to read 2 articles. And feel free to jump in at any time. I'll highlight your chats. I will stop and comment on things. This is very much a discussion, so feel free to be part of the discussion. And yeah, usually if there's any time after the articles, we'll just talk about whatever we want to talk about, whatever comes up. And yeah, we'll just get right into it. So first article, let me actually make this a little bit bigger. Sorry about that. Did that do anything? No, there we go. That's plenty big. Okie dokie. So first article is actually not the one on the thumbnail because this title was too long to fit on the thumbnail, but this is going to give us an introduction. And then we're going to an introduction to the allegations, and then we're going to read an article in which Lizzo defends herself from the allegations. So let's get started. I don't know if any of you know anything about this case so far. I mentioned, or I put in my community that I have been following this gal, Kiera Bria, I think is her name. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. And she's been talking about this quite a bit. She's a person from the dance world who also does this sort of feminist content. I really love her channel. So, if you're interested in new people to follow, go check out my community because I mentioned her in there. But she's been talking about this, and I've just seen little bits and pieces about it, but I don't really know, the nitty gritty details. So we're going to find that out together. And yeah. Okay. Former tour dancers accuse Lizzo of harassment and hostile work environment in lawsuit. In a lawsuit filed Tuesday, 3 dancers claim that touring with the Grammy winner meant working in an overtly sexual atmosphere that subjected them to harassment. Defendants in the lawsuit include Lizzo, her production company, Big Girl Big Touring Inc., and Shirlene Quigley, the tour's dance captain. So here's an image from a concert, and you can see her backup dancers. I mean, they're like pretty skimpily dressed, or, revealing clothing. That's part of her brand and her image. One thing I've been thinking about too with this is there a distinction in the workplace between being on stage and off stage? Because when I was talking to my sister about this, she said, well, if you go work in a strip club, if you go work in a restaurant, gross, like Hooters or someplace like that, being sexually harassed is part of the job. Now, the radical take on that is that we shouldn't have jobs in which being degraded or sexually harassed is baked into the job. But that being said, even if you're a stripper, even if you work in an exploitative restaurant, even if you're a dancer in music production that is sexual, or like you're dancing and revealing clothes, that even if that's the job, you should still, as an employee, have a reasonable expectation that outside of your duties, you will not be further harassed, if that makes sense. So the radical take would be we should just eliminate all of those jobs and work environments in which women are harassed and exploited. Short of that, in the current environment, maybe the best we can do for right now would be to ensure that those women are not harassed more than is already part of the job. I don't know if that makes sense. So Irene says, brace yourselves. She's familiar with this story. So, okay, let's get into it. This article is by Lauren McCarthy. So, update, Lizzo has responded to the lawsuit, calling its claims as unbelievable as they sound. And we will be also discussing and reading about her response to these allegations. Three of Lizzo's former dancers filed a lawsuit against her on Tuesday in Los Angeles Superior Court, accusing the Grammy-winning singer and the captain of her dance team of creating a hostile work environment while performing concerts on her special tour this year. The lawsuit, a copy of which was provided to the New York Times by the plaintiff's law firm, said the dancers had been exposed to an overtly sexual atmosphere that permeated their workplace, which included outings where nudity and sexuality were a focal point. It said the suit was first reported by NBC. So if they're talking about outings with coworkers or with management, which might be Lizzo or her dance captain or someone on a management level, that is not work related, where they're not performing the duties of their work, but they are with their management, that is definitely a situation where they should be protected from sexual harassment. The suit was first reported by NBC. The defendants include Lizzo, using her full name, Melissa Jefferson, instead of her stage name, her production company, Big Girl Big Touring, Inc., and Shirlene Quigley, the tour's dance captain. It does not specify whether the singer was aware of the plaintiff's allegations linked to Ms. Quigley. So two separate, multiple separate defendants in this case. The suit alleges that Lizzo was involved in several episodes that lawyers for the three dancers said amounted to sexual harassment and weight shaming, among other allegations. I don't know if weight shaming in particular, I think this is something I'm not an expert on, but I do think in California that is maybe against the law, because obviously they wouldn't be including that if it wasn't against the law, right? Because I think in probably in many places, I don't think there are laws necessarily to protect against that, but it seems like probably in California that would, only make sense. They would include that as a lawsuit if that's against the law to do. Irene says, dance is such a difficult situation because encouraging sexual dance moves can be dismissed as it's just part of the choreography. And again, I said, maybe there's a distinction between what they do at the job and what they're, encouraged to do at the job and what they're doing in this sort of off work time, if they're going to strip clubs together and stuff like that, or whatever. It sounded like it was something like that. Then, they did agree to do a job that includes sexual dancing. I don't think it's good enough to just say to women, oh, just don't do that job, though. They should still be reasonably protected. And even if you're teaching someone choreography, and even if it's sexual kind of choreography or sexualized choreography, you can still say things that increase the harassment factor, right? You could, say inappropriate things about the person's body parts or whatever. It's not just, oh, do this move by moving your hips or moving your arms or whatever. Just use your imagination that the dance captain or whatever could instruct them in a way that is abusive. I heard in a video about the controversy that she wasn't outright about her weight shaming. It was subtle. I don't know if Lizzo would be penalized if it wasn't outright. Well, that is something obviously for a judge or jury to decide. That's why it's going to court. Hit the like button according to Useless Strawberry and me. Blorbo says, I know in the past women have had a really hard time getting judges to rule in their favor when it comes to weight-based harassment or discrimination from employers. And the very interesting aspect of this, are they being encouraged to be thinner or heavier or what? I'm not sure what Lizzo is trying to promote. She is obviously much larger herself and is promoting the sexualized vision of larger women. So I don't know. Let's read on. Ms. Quigley was also accused of making sexually explicit comments to the dancers, and the lawsuit accuses her of engaging in religious harassment. Interesting aspect of this. Ms. Quigley made it her mission to preach Christianity to the dancers, the lawsuit says, and appeared to be fixated on one plaintiff's virginity. Okay, so obviously super, super, super inappropriate in a workplace. Whether it's legal will be for the court to decide. But so interesting too, the contrast, or I don't know what you call it, contrast, incongruence of making sexually explicit comments whilst also preaching Christianity, which is something that could make people really uncomfortable, though I'm not sure that it is illegal to proselytize on the job. Again, I'm not a lawyer in California, so well, it is a lawsuit, Hazel. So yes, it would be going to court. I don't know if it will go in front of a jury. C says, I was thinking about the contrast. It's bizarre. Irene says she was pushing Christianity and her apology was saying God is good and God loves you. Spoilers. Juxtaposition is insane. Welcome, Abby. Thanks for joining us. Okay. And so this fixating on your employee's virginity, that's not even a conversation that should come up ever at work, ever, ever, ever. And that's your boss, right? And that, when we talk about workplace harassment, that's the important thing to remember in this, is the person who is the victim of this harassment, they may feel pressured to play along with this or else be fired, demoted, get pay cut or something else. This is their livelihood. This is, not only their livelihood in the moment, but they may need a reference for future jobs. They don't want to get a reputation as being difficult to work with in the entertainment industry and stuff like that. So there's a lot of pressure to just absorb this abuse. Again, I want to mention this is all allegations. So none of this has been proven. It's up for the court to decide if there's enough evidence to prove that they have a case. So we're just speaking speculatively about all of this. But if these things are true, those would be my opinions on them. On one occasion, while at a nightclub in Amsterdam, the lawsuit says Lizzo began inviting employees to touch nude performers and handle, not going to say that word, and bananas used in their performances. So I guess that word is good enough for the New York Times, but you know me, sometimes I like to keep it family friendly around here. So just imagine you're a young dancer, or I'm presumably younger or whatever. And you're far from home, you're on a tour, and you go to a nightclub and your boss tells you to touch a naked performer. It's such an uncomfortable situation to imagine. And, you know, you could really, it's really kind of like terrifying even to think about that scenario. And no one should be put in that position. That's the point. No one should be put in that position where maybe they like it and maybe they go along with it and it's fun and they think it's a good time or whatever. But if they don't, now they've been put in a position where they are going to be really uncomfortable, and that's not right. That is why there are laws to protect against harassment like that. Adrian says, I think it all follows for me with Lizzo on this. She sees herself as an, but also doesn't see a conflict between Christianity and her secular religion of sex positive pop liberal feminism. Because she is intrinsically good, nothing she does that follows her beliefs maintains her goodness. Yeah. Absolutely, too. I was just thinking this. Useless Strawberry says it is also harassment of the performer, too, is it not? I don't know what hey, existential, we're missing you. I haven't seen you in a while. I was like hoping everything was okay. I'm glad you were on vacation. Hope you went somewhere nice. But yeah, I was thinking of this too, right? And it may be part of the performance to have people touch you or whatever. Irene says they're in Amsterdam where these places are legal. And yeah, so maybe that's acceptable in that context. But again, still, it's your boss telling you to touch a naked person. That is so over a line. Irene says, I knew a woman who went to Amsterdam and posted outside pics on IG of the brothels as an aesthetic. Safe to say, I was horrified. Yes. Other people's misery, suffering, trafficking, slavery should never be used as an aesthetic. Hey, Infinite Kindness, another person I haven't seen in a hot second. Good to see you again. Out of fear of retaliation, a dancer eventually acquiesced to touching the breast of a nude female performer, despite repeatedly expressing no interest in doing so, the suit says. So if that's true and the court finds that there's enough evidence to prove this, that seems like plenty enough for a harassment, to make this claim of harassment. This was one of the things that I wrote down. So I'm really glad you brought up this point, Blorbo. It always astonishes me to hear about women putting other women in situations like this. Like, as a woman, you know how that pressure feels. Why would you do it to someone else? And I wrote down in my notes, took a few little notes about this. Sisterhood. Women are subject to so much harassment from men. We should protect each other from harassment where possible and not perpetuate/perpetrate even more harassment. So we already live in a world where we're getting all of this from men, and the bare minimum we should do is the little bit of protecting each other from these situations. Here you have a situation where a female employee is being pressured by her female boss to touch a naked female, quote unquote, sex worker, horrible all around. Horrible. I don't know, is Lizzo like an artist that kids listen to? Like, I know her music's like very universally popular. I will confess that I don't care for her music at all. And, you know, I just, like I said in the beginning of this, I don't really like have the highest opinion of her. I have made a video about her, and yeah, I'm not really sure like what the appeal of her as an artist or a musician or whatever it is. I find her music to be very annoying. That's just me, and I have like a pretty broad taste in music. I do like some pop music for sure, but I actually have a playlist of music on my channel, random unsorted songs. If you want to get an idea of like my taste in music, it's really all over the place. But I definitely like some pop music and stuff, you know, some popular stuff. But I don't know, I just find her music really annoying. Adrian asks, can you link your prior video on her? Yeah, I'll put a link to it in the description of this video. I also put it on my community post today. So and again, it's that fear of retaliation, right? So if you're hanging out with your boss, whether you're at work or you're at an out of work function, if you're with your boss has control over you, right? And if you don't act right, they can negatively impact your life, your livelihood. And so it can be very hard or uncomfortable for people to speak up against their boss, because that's what they perceive as not being their job. Their job is to do what their boss tells them to do. Representatives for Lizzo and her production company did not immediately respond to requests for comment on Tuesday. Dancers in Lizzo's Watch Out for the Big Girls reality show last year. Ariana Davis, bottom right, is one of the plaintiffs in the lawsuit. So I'm guessing that's this gal. Also, hopefully this stream is like, my internet's really, really poor today. I can see like there's a little bandwidth thing they showed you, and it's really bad. So hopefully like my audio and video is all okay today. But you can always let me know if anything sounds or looks weird or whatever. Maybe freezing up. Okay. So I mean, I do like that she promotes like diversity of women, you know, ethnically and body type wise and stuff. That's really cool, because there really aren't a ton of places where you get representation that way. But again, it's in that liberal feminist sort of hypersexualized way. So I'm not really sure if that's something that we want to promote. Is it representation if it's just hypersexualized? That's a good question. That's a good sort of general question. Oh, audio's a bit weird right now, but still understandable. Right now, or has it been the whole time? Also, it might be my voice. My voice is even more like my voice than usual. Two of the plaintiffs, Ariana Davis and Crystal Williams, began performing with Lizzo after competing on her reality television show on Amazon Prime, Watch Out for the Big Girls, in 2021. The show was an opportunity to give plus-size dancers representation, Lizzo said at the time. Ms. Davis and Ms. Williams were fired in the spring of 2023, lawsuit says, so just a couple of months ago. Separately, a third plaintiff, Noelle Rodriguez, was hired in May 2021 to perform in Lizzo's Rumors music video and remained on as part of her dance team. According to the lawsuit, Ms. Rodriguez resigned shortly after Ms. Davis and Ms. Williams had been fired. So these plaintiffs were fired. and or two of them were fired and one of them resigned. So they don't work for her anymore. I don't know if it'll get into what conditions they were fired under. But my guess would be some people who are like supporting Lizzo in this would say, oh, they're just bitter employees who got fired and want to get back at her or something like that. Existential says, from what I saw on YouTube, people were more outraged about her hypocrisy over fat shaming her dancers while promoting herself as a beacon of body positivity rather than the disturbing harassment. I agree that is very incongruous. I think they're both bad. And I think I agree that's probably sort of shocking, right? The stunning nature of how Lizzo and her management team treated their performers seems to go against everything Lizzo stands for publicly. A lawyer for the plaintiffs, Ron Zambrano, said in a statement on Tuesday. Privately, he said Lizzo weight shames her dancers and demeans them in ways that are not only illegal, but absolutely demoralizing. So someone acting differently in public than they do private, kind of common. Some of Lizzo's statements to the dancers gave Ms. Davis, who was diagnosed with binge eating disorder, the impression that she had to explain her weight gain and disclose intimate personal details about her life in order to keep her job, the suit says. Blorbo says, I'm sure people are going to use this to be like racist and misogynistic and hateful to fat people, which sucks. I don't know if this will get sort of generalized beyond Lizzo. Could though. Whoops. Adrian says, I used to like her a great deal, but then beginning with Truth Hurts, she had a lyric, if you feel like a girl, then you reel like a girl. And it became more clear how much posturing she engaged in. Then her advancing the underwhelming TW dancer over real women. It all seemed like she wanted to position herself for the youngins, and it just seemed fake. Hazel agrees that was annoying. Some of Lizzo's statements to the dancers. Oh, okay, ran out of that. So one of these dancers felt that she had to explain her weight gain in order to keep her job. I guess, oh man, that's a little tough one. Like, does it kind of depend? If your job is to be a dancer, your job is to really be a visual object. I'm not saying this doesn't make it toxic or this isn't a toxic aspect of the dance industry, because like I'm a big fan of ballet, and obviously that's like a huge world where there's so much of that weight shaming and stuff that goes on because the aesthetic is, you know, kind of reliant on a very specific body type, and there's not really a lot of room for other body types in there. Existential says, fat for me, but not for thee. True, Lisa, but Lizzo's a dancer too. That's a very good point. Is just looking at that picture up here. She is, I don't really want to get into all this body analysis, but like she is bigger than all the rest of them. Maybe that is something that she wants to be. And she doesn't want her dancers to be as large or larger than she is or whatever, you know. Please raise your hand if you've ever felt personally victimized by a ballet teacher. I started dancing ballet when I was like 24 or 25 as an older adult. I got into it because I was very into Pilates, and there's a little overlap between Pilates and ballet, and I was like, I want to try ballet. Never done it before. And I was lucky I had very supportive teachers, but I was also doing it as an adult where you have no, you know, aims to a professional career or anything like that. And pretty much all adult, I actually really recommend adult ballet to people because it is usually a very uplifting environment. Everyone wants to be there and stuff. And that's how dance should be. Like, dance should be very uplifting. Abby says not ballet, but as a runner, there was a rampant unspoken ED behaviors on every single track and cross country team. And that's true. I did run in high school, and for sure. I should say I was on the track team in high school. I did run. I was a sprinter, but you know, a runner. Anyways. Since her breakout hit Truth Hurts dominated the charts in 2019, I can't even think of how that song goes. Like, I feel like I'm not like super familiar with her music. What I know of it and what I've heard of it is whatever. It's not my favorite. Lizzo has popularized feel-good music and self-love and has celebrated diversity in all forms by churning out empowerment anthems, introducing a size-inclusive shapewear line, and racking up millions of views on social media. So that idea, again, of inclusion or representation in something like shapewear, which is essentially a girdle, right, is maybe not the kind of inclusion and representation we want to be aiming for. It's like, oh, you too, larger women, can be objectified and sexualized. It's not just for thin women anymore. And I'm not sure that's the direction. In fact, I would say that's the direction we don't want to be going in. That would be very liberal feminist. Also, very good point. Very good logical point from Terrifying Renegade Pearl. How can shapewear be inclusive? It's meant to slim you down. Right? Just by the logic of it, it is not inclusive. Oh, very interesting. Existential says so many fat activists get shit on for losing weight, even if they're having alarming health symptoms. Kind of reminds me of the hate detrans get, the message overall, even the message overall, even health. Yeah. Right. So there, if a person gets popular as a plus size model or as Existential says, a fat activist, yeah, I feel like there would be pressure to maintain your size, even, you know, if say you start working out, like, right, you get shamed because very similar to the detrans thing, I think. She won this year's Grammy for Record of the Year for About Damn Time. A song I think that's very annoying, in my opinion. Diana Reddy, an assistant professor at the School of Law at UC Berkeley, said the allegations that fall outside legally protected categories could undermine Lizzo's body positive message and can certainly encourage a settlement. So allegations that fall outside legally protected categories is, you know, I don't know, body shaming, if that's actually a protected thing in California law. I really don't know about that. Not an expert. Providing a hostile work environment in the unconventional entertainment industry is difficult, she said, so the plaintiff's lawyers could be hoping for a settlement. Employment discrimination plaintiffs don't fare particularly well in court, Ms. Reddy said. Settlement would be like maybe make it go away. Okay, so that was it. Here's some other articles they've had about Lizzo. Underneath it all, she's 100% Lizzo. Lizzo's empowerment pop gets stuck in the same groove. That doesn't sound very flattering. And then this is the thing that I wrote my video about last year. So we're going to look at Lizzo's reply. Lizzo denies allegations in former dancers lawsuit. That's the one that's on the thumbnail today. Three dancers have accused the Grammy-winning singer of creating a hostile work environment. Claims that they said were as unbelievable as they sound. Lizzo responded on Thursday to allegations that have been made against her in a lawsuit. Chat is really quiet. I know I've had issues with it, so I don't know if you guys are just quiet or like the chat's not going through, because it's usually like 4 minutes without a message. How could that be? Lizzo on Thursday denied allegations made against her this week by three former dancers who she said created a hostile work environment while performing concerts during the Grammy-winning Singers Special Tour this year. Okay, you guys are just listening. That's good. That's fine. The three dancers said they had been exposed to an overtly sexual atmosphere that permeated their workplace in a lawsuit filed on Tuesday in Los Angeles Superior Court. Who here has been in a sexual workplace or sexually harassed at work? I have experienced it, particularly at one job that I had. I worked in the hedge fund industry in an office full of men, and there was just continual sexual banter. So I've experienced that, and it sucks. It makes you really uncomfortable, and it's sort of like, oh, you get to know your place, you know, and you just have to play along or something, go along to get along. Existential says the irony that such a storm erupted over a relatively mildly offensive lyric, while this audacious stuff went unchecked so long. Truly, we live in a society. Yes, people were absolutely outraged to use the word S-P-A-Z-Z in her in a song. And people lost their mind over it, and she apologized. And this magnitude of this is really much worse. These allegations, anyways. Existentials experience indirect misogyny. A lot of you get it. Lampress is not at work, but by males during elementary school. Abby says it's funny because in post-grad humanities department, it's always majority women. I love it. I don't get too much male contact. That's nice. Almost like a separatist kind of environment. Yam Yam's more bothered by how much she uses the B word. I was pretty bothered by that as well. Especially because, and this is what I talk about in that video, you know, she came out with this statement, I would never use derogatory language. I would never, I'm a person who's above using derogatory language. I would never use derogatory language. And she uses the B word every other word. The lawsuit described several episodes that lawyers for the dancers said amounted to sexual harassment and weight shaming. Hold on, you guys. I have to be right back. So just talk amongst yourselves. Okay, thanks. Okay, I'm back. Usually I choose not to respond to false allegations, but these are as unbelievable as they sound and too outrageous to not be addressed. Lizzo said in a statement posted on social media. So, do we think that these allegations sound unbelievable, or do they sound believable? I think they sound pretty believable as far as allegations go. It doesn't sound like something that's completely out of the realm of possibility. These sensationalized stories are coming from former employees who have already publicly admitted that they were told their behavior on tour was inappropriate and unprofessional. So she's flipping it around and saying it's really these individuals were the source of inappropriate, unprofessional behavior, not her, but these individuals. So somebody is Darvoing somebody here, right? Flipping it around. Hannah says, believable, but some aspects I feel are exaggerated. Terrifying Renegade Pearl says, it sounds possible. Existential says, believable. She's a filthy rich celebrity. Much like politicians and billionaires, you don't get there by being nice. Wow, this is really the ultimate reductionist sound. Good username there. Very strong words. I could tell instantly from Lizzo's worthless, self-righteous, arrogant preaching, refusing to address these victims' points, that she is full of it and the wrong. Well, that is for a court to decide. This is I agree with this. False allegations of sexual misconduct / harassment are statistically really rare. I agree. And these, if you look at sort of the Occam's razor, right? People usually who come forward, they have quite a lot to lose and very little to gain. So why would they come forward unless it's true, right? That is, Irene says, believable. Abby says, I believe in general the idea she probably created a hostile and uncomfortable work environment and over-sexualized environment. I mean, her outward brand is so hypersexualized. Is it really a far leap to say that when, you know, the cameras are off and the stage lights are off, that she's perpetuating that environment and maybe even more so, you know? Existential says, I can see a famous woman being a mean girl with zero boundaries, thinking she's a girl boss, especially with lib fem brainworms. Pearl says it would be makes less sense if they were lying. They have a lot to lose. And I agree. That's how I see it, is doesn't really make sense for them to come forward with this unless there was something to it. And I don't know if it says what, I don't think the other article said what they were fired for. Two of them were fired and one of them resigned, which could be, you know, could be she was pushed out. Sometimes that happens. Two of the plaintiffs, Ariana Davis and Crystal Williams, became dancers for Lizzo after competing on her reality television show on Amazon Prime, Watch Out for the Big Girls, in 2021. The lawsuit says Ms. Davis and Ms. Williams were fired in spring 2023. The third plaintiff, Noel Rodriguez, was hired in May 2021 to perform in Lizzo's Rumors music video and joined her dance team. Ms. Rodriguez resigned shortly after Ms. Davis and Ms. Williams were fired, the lawsuit says. Ms. Davis, who was diagnosed with binge eating disorder, said in the lawsuit that some of Lizzo's statements to dancers gave her the impression she had to explain her. This is very like reiterating the other article, right? In fact, this is like word for word the other article. Explain her weight gain and disclose intimate personal details about her life in order to keep her job. Okay, wow, this is literally the same. They like copy pasted so much of this article from the other article. It's insane. The lawsuit also describes an episode at a nightclub in Amsterdam where Lizzo began inviting employees to touch new performers and blah, blah, blah. Okay, this is, damn, I'm actually like kind of shocked like how recycled this article is. I don't think I've ever seen that in the New York Times before, where it was like purely recycled, like word for word, copy paste. Lizzo said in her statement on Thursday that she took her music and performances seriously. Sometimes I have to make hard decisions, but it's never my intention to make anyone feel uncomfortable or like they aren't valued as an important part of the team, the statement said. She also nodded to the sexual harassment allegations and directly denied the claims that she had weight shamed dancers. I am very open with my sexuality and expressing myself, but I cannot accept or allow people to use that openness to make me out to be something I am not. Well, maybe your workplace is not the place to be open with your sexuality. Do we agree with that? Like, okay, first of all, I'm very open with my sexuality. Is there anything wrong with that? Maybe not. I don't know. I mean, I think that hyper-sexualizing yourself in a way that's really meant to appeal to men, more or less, or in a stereotypically male gaze kind of way, I do think that is harmful. Talked about that many, many, many times. Of course it's harmful. Is a workplace the proper place to be doing that, if you're going to do that at all, amongst your, not just your coworkers, but your subordinate employees? That's not right. I mean, that's such a weak ass statement, right? Why do people in entertainment think things are different from corporate America? Again, I was talking to my sister about this and I'm like, they are employees. Why do we think that people in the entertainment industry deserve like fewer rights than someone working at Starbucks or something? Is an employee, anyone who's worked anywhere, you know, you go in the break room and there's the cork board full of all your rights and everything, your right to unionize, your right to, you know, the minimum wage has to be posted and all these kinds of things. You know what I mean? Just because you work in entertainment, you work as an independent contractor or whatever, you still have rights. You still have rights. This idea, I'm very open with my sexuality, therefore I shouldn't have to follow the same laws as other people or something. It's just really a very weird response. You know, if I was her lawyer, I would, or PR person or whatever, I would probably advise against making any statement. But I mean, did she clear this through a lawyer to say, I'm very open with my sexuality as some sort of defense to these allegations? It's no one's business. I agree. I know, just the thought of it's like, do you want to know about your boss's sexuality? Do you want to know about your boss's sexuality? I think most of us would just go, ugh, ugh. Lorbo says, people seem to believe public figures trade out their workers' rights. Her BR people are sobbing and begging her to stop talking. I agree, that's horrendous. This is a professional multimillionaire with a team, and she's making these posts on social media. It's that aspect of this whole thing is like high cringe. I cannot accept or allow people to use that openness to make me to be out make me out to be something I am not. You know, whatever your stance on a person's openness with their sexuality, the workplace is not the right place to be exploring your sexuality amongst your subordinate workers, whether they be employees or contractors. I totally 100% agree. Existential says, open with my sexuality implies foisting it on others unwittingly. Nowadays, people confuse open with not ashamed of, which is fine, but it doesn't mean you must share it. Agreed. And you don't have the right to share it. I think we've just gone really over the edge of this stuff. There's nothing I take more seriously than the respect we deserve as women in the world. Oh my God. Y'all. There's nothing I take more. This really reminds me, it harkens back to her, the video I made, like I'm saying, of her saying, I would never use a derogatory term. Meanwhile, her song is all bitch this and bitch that. And she just, that's not a derogatory term. Holy moly. Watch that video of mine if you want to see why the B word is a derogatory term. But it's really, it strikes me in exactly the same way. There's nothing I take more seriously than the respect we deserve as women in the world. And yet, look at her image. Look at what she's promoting. She's promoting this hyper objectification, dehumanization, sexualization. It's wild. It's so cognitive dissonance, or I guess just liberal feminism is just cognitive dissonance. That's just sort of what liberal feminism is, right? It's saying, I'm doing these, I'm going to wear chains in order to be liberated. Well, how does that work? How do you promote respect of women when you're promoting a degraded vision of women? This literally polar opposites. I know what it feels like to be body shamed on a daily basis and would never criticize or terminate an employee because of their weight. The defendants in the lawsuit include Lizzo using her full name, Melissa Jefferson, etc. We've already read this. Lizzo did not address the allegations made against Ms. Quigley, who was accused of making sexually explicit comments to the dancers and of engaging in religious harassment, which I'm not sure. I mean, I guess that's against the law if they're bringing it up in the lawsuit. I've never heard that. I guess if religion is a protected category, though, then yeah. All right, what you say? Y'all say in the chat. Yam Yam's pointing out the big problem with all this. Young girls will believe her too, and this is their impression of feminism. Nick says, I agree. Can't stand the B word, especially when women use it. So let's go back to here. That's me. Hi, everybody. Sometimes I'd love for them to just be honest and stop trying to be activists for feminism. Like, yep, I'm sexualized because it makes me rich. I have no message. I just want money. I agree. What the heck? It has nothing to do with feminism. It's so wild. What if that is feminism? We are so screwed, right? Abby says, liberal feminism, we willingly objectify ourselves instead of men objectifying us, or both, right? We willingly objectify ourselves and men also objectify us. And yay, it's empowering. Okay. can't you do this stuff, but at least keep feminism out of your mouth? Is the cope that important? Says Yam Yams. Again, it's like this cognitive dissonance. How can they be doing, doing one thing and saying another? Useless says, I have a bone to pick with this form of body positivity where it's all about making fat women objectified the same awful way. I totally, totally, totally agree. And there's some aspects of body positivity that I actually do agree with, and healthy at every size. There are certain aspects of that I do agree with. The toxic part of it is the sexualization of saying, oh, well, any woman, any age, any size, any body type can be a sex object. That's not really moving us forward at all. I think, like Blorbo says, body neutrality is so much more helpful for body image, in my opinion. I agree. I don't think there's anything. Yeah, I know probably a lot of you body neutral. I'm a little more, and that's okay. Like, I don't feel the need to have to agree with everybody on that. I do agree that we should be positive towards our body. I personally think it's okay to look in the mirror and say, I like how I look. I feel beautiful, whatever. Acknowledging that that's not where your value comes from as a woman. But I think it's okay to look at yourself and like yourself. And one of the reasons I think that is because we're so conditioned to hate ourselves. And there are so many industries that are built on us hating our appearance and hating the way we look and all that stuff, that to really look at yourself and say, I like the way I look, is a form of rebellion in the society that we live in. I like how I look for me. I really don't care what anyone else thinks of how I look, That's why I don't try to do anything to change my appearance. So I think that's kind of the body positivity that I practice personally. I don't say I preach any specific thing with regard to how we should think about our bodies. But yeah, it's something I'd like to talk about, make a video about at some point. Yeah, Existential says being neutral doesn't mean you can't like features of yourself. I just don't pin my entire sense of worth on my appearance. Exactly. I think there's something powerful in being like, I look in the mirror and I like what I see. Like, I do think that there's something powerful about that. Just and the real powerful thing about body neutrality is being like, look at all my body can do. It's alive, it's breathing. I can walk from one end of the room to the other. Whatever fitness I can do and stuff, I'm grateful for all of those things. That should be much more of a focus than any kind of aesthetic appearance. But I don't think there's anything wrong with liking your body as it is, without altering it. Think about all of plastic surgery and makeup, and we talked about whatever slimming undergarments and stuff like that. That's all those things are based on women hating their appearance, right? And it's very powerful rebellion to be like, you know what, just as I am right today without any changes, I actually like how I look. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. Abby says, Martha Stewart on Sports Illustrated, rather than accepting older women into society, we have to sexualize older women to allow them into society. Totally, totally, totally agree. Totally agree. Hazel says it just sells more cheap, sexy clothes and pushes women into OnlyFans. You know what I discovered today? Do you guys know about this? It's called a virtual influencer or something like that. And there's these AI accounts that are on like Twitter and Instagram and stuff. And they're just fully AI, like photo and video. It's like fully AI. And they have like millions of followers. And the comments are all like thirsty ass men. It's wild. I never knew about that. I've never seen that before. I just learned about that. I'm like, Wow. Wow. For how hard I work at YouTube and everything, I could just create like an AI script or something and get millions of followers. It's wild. But then it's like, look at these men. I saw some comment that was like, that oh, it was a really, really good comment. I wish that I had bookmarked it or something. Um, but it was like, for anyone who's kind of making note that of all the thirsty men in the comments, right? And being like, don't you realize this is AI and these are fake and everything. That the fakeness is the whole point. Like, and I thought it was such a great and astute comment. And they brought up the like body pillows that are in the shape of a woman or whatever. And it made me think about sex dolls and stuff like that. The fact that it's not a person is the point. The fact that it's not a human woman is the point. Men don't want a human woman, they want an object. And I just thought it was really fascinating. It's like, yeah, they like to lust after this AI because it's not a woman, because it's not a human woman. It will never talk back to them. It will never ask them to do anything for it. That's the ultimate woman. I said this so many times, with the ultimate woman for a man is just a pure object. Something that they can use and abuse with impunity and will never complain. And that's, Pearl says, men seem to actively dislike real human women. Of course they do. Abby says, I have seriously given up on millennial and Gen Z men. They literally were raised on porn from an extremely young age. They're brain rotten and too far gone. Hazel said, actually, Radical Ramblings and I did a stream about that. Does anyone remember when Victoria's Secret did a shoot with a woman with Down syndrome? We did a deep dive on that of Victoria's Secret, and that's an old school stream we did probably like 2 years ago or something. And it was about that. It was about how they're expanding the bandwidth of sexualization to women with Down syndrome. Now, people with Down syndrome should be included in society, but is that the inclusion? Is that the representation we want as sex objects? Of course not. Irene, I regret to inform some of the older women here about the NPC fetish that is gaining traction. I don't know what that is, but I can kind of imagine acting like your head is empty of thoughts or something, and that you can just, be manipulated into doing anything. And the way men act, normie women are asking, do men even like women? The answer is no. They only want pornified characters. They hate real sentient women. I had a male friend at one point, no longer a friend, who sent me this thing, and it was about how when men find out, when straight men find out what a vagina looks like, or a vulva, I should say, like how their reaction is to be horrified by it and to be, completely disgusted by it. And it was like a joke. Like the thing that he sent me, it was from a TV show. It was a comedy thing. And it was supposed to be a joke. It was supposed to be a joke. The first time that a man, hetero, man, young man, whatever, sees a real human vulva for the first time, that they're physically repelled and, like nauseated or whatever by it, horrified by it. And they run screaming in the other direction, and that idea. And I was like, that yeah, and his argument was that in a way, hetero men are actually gay or something because they are completely repulsed by female genitalia. That was his take. Um, Useless says, the disgust is mutual, my dude. I don't get it. It looks like something went wrong. And I don't know, when this guy sent me that, and he was just like, oh, like just trying to kind of be joking and funny and like, look at this funny thing. I was like, this is actually so horrifying and like traumatizing and brings up so much like trauma for me. And that idea that women are, or that men are so repulsed by our natural bodies it's horrifying. Hannah says, I was talking to a man that said hairy legs on a woman make him want to vomit. Not very heterosexual to not want a natural human woman's body. That's what I'm saying. These guys don't want human women. Abby says, look at the amount of effort the average male puts in his appearance versus what he expects from his partner. Very true. What is can someone explain what the NPC thing is? Because I am not familiar with that. I mean, I know what NPCs are, like in a video game. The end goal of patriarchy is necrophilia is something I heard before the 6 with me. I reminded in this conversation. Oh man. Let me see, because I wrote something down the other day that I think would fit in with this conversation very well, but let me see if I can find it as you all talk amongst yourselves. I just wrote down a little thought that I had, very, very on topic. I have this giant document of feminist topics. It's like, it's utterly massive. I have like 700 different topics or something. And I know I started going through it actually kind of recently, and I know I'll never get to all of it, but oh, okay. Here's what I wrote down. Oh, you're all telling me about this NPC thing. It's basically real women act like non-sentient NPCs in video games, and men give them moves to do things. Ugh. Mostly women act like NPCs and say the same things over and over again, doing jerky movements like in a game. Damn, that's weird. Our society is so freaking doomed, man. Like there were a couple people in my comments on I made the video about why I don't want kids, being like, oh, but like being really manipulative about it. Like, don't you actually want kids? And I'm like, in this world, you have to be kind of insane. I don't mean having kids 18 years ago. I mean having kids in 2023 or 2024. You have to actually be insane to think that that's a good idea. Okay, so I wrote down, is a man being sexually attracted to you a form of power? Is a man being sexually attracted to you a form of power? Here's what I wrote. Men are sexually attracted to corpses, animals, and inanimate objects. What power do they have? Men's sexual attraction does not represent any kind of power. Men are sexually attracted to corpses, animals and inanimate objects, what power do they have? Oh, great comment. The only power comes from people respecting you. Men don't respect the things they see as sex objects. I think power comes from different, that's interesting. It's like how do we define power? It's like power is like the ability to do things, I think. So I guess having people's respect could help you get some things done. Ugh, Hazel, making me tingle over here. That's why mortuaries prefer to hire women. Also, like, I guess I didn't say also children, right? Should we add children to the list? Corpses, inanimate objects, animals, children. None of those things have power. I'm not reading all these chats. Y'all are turning spicy. Is it because it's a later stream? This is my era. I think I was a teenager when that came out. American Pie franchise was built on this idea. Whoa. Okay, J'adore Bell. That's a new name. Welcome. Also, I heard a study that when men see women's bodies, the part of their brains associated with tools lights up. Rat Femmes After Dark for sure. Oh man, you guys are like making me laugh. Oh boy. Oh boy, man. This chat is extra spicy. Existential says, I'm in the minority and that I like male bodies. Sadly, me too. Me too movement. But the internet has shown that men's egos are extremely inflated as they tear down men, so I'm not about to go around bigging up dudes. Yeah, I find myself now, I wouldn't even say like I'm attracted to men anymore. Is that weird? Like I'm definitely not attracted to women and I almost certainly never will be. But I've lost my attraction to men, even physically, even when I see like a hot guy, and I actually like follow a few hot guys on social media just for the aesthetics of their bodies, which is, I don't know, is that radical? Probably not. But it's not like I'm like, oh, I wonder. Okay, when I was younger, if I saw a hot guy, the hets will relate to this one. If I saw a hot guy, your immediate thought is like, I wonder what kind of boyfriend he would be. Or like, I mean, at least that's how I always. Now I see a hot guy and I'm just like, I just like appreciate their body aesthetically. It's more like I get inspired to work out myself because I also want to have like muscles and stuff like that. TMI, I don't know. But I no longer have that feeling of like, oh, I wonder if that guy would make a good boyfriend that I used to have. Hazel says the quickest way to get over a crush is to talk to them. Abby says, is it weird to say I'm not attracted to 21st century males? I watch older movies and I like them there. Or was that idealistic? Well, they were like the same though, I think. Right? It's just that this internet age has really brought out like literally the darkest shit in people, men specifically. Vieira says, like, oh, he's handsome and we move on. Agree. Just, yeah, it's like I can appreciate like an aesthetic male body, but like I just have no interest in that man outside of that. Yam Yam says, I found trying to talk to men online to be a form of self-harm. Useless bringing the lesbian take. Women are awesome and vulvas are wonderful. My stance. Unfortunately, you know, I've heard other women make this joke too, and I've made this joke many times, that hetero women like me are proof that sexual orientation is not a choice, because who on earth would choose to be with men? This is exact, dude. Existential, you and I are on the same wavelength on so many things. I like good-looking guys, but to say I'm attracted, nah, that implies me wanting to go over and talk to him. Appreciate from afar. Agreed. It's like an animal in a zoo or something. My experience has shown me crushes are naive. Men are the real NPCs. Yeah, I thought about, okay, so originally the video I was going to do the other day, I made a video about why I'm child free, and I've already come up with 2 more reasons why. From the comments, there were a couple really good comments of like, oh yeah, I totally have forgotten about that aspect of it. But I was going to make a video about why I don't date men, and I've got a lot of reasons. That's another thing that I took notes about. I have not dated a man in 7 years. I wish it was even longer. I came across this thing. Maybe we should do this as another side topic. We have quite a bit of time left, or we have a bit of time left. This whole idea of are we dating the same man Facebook groups? Have you guys heard about that? Actually, Radical brought it up, and then I realized I had saved an article about that. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, top article in the New York Times right now is Republican 2024 climate strategy, more drilling, less clean energy. Yay. Oh, goody gumdrops. Good job. Let's see. Are we dating the same man? Hold on. Stand by. I wrote this down. Okay, got it. Got it. Don't worry, he's all right, according to at least one woman. Facebook groups like Vouched Dating and Are We Dating the Same Guy help strangers vet potential partners. This is where we are at right now in the world. This is how dangerous it is inherently on the surface to date men, is that we have to have groups that account for men. And even those, I'm sure, don't function perfectly, right? Oh, I feel like, did we read an article by Gina Cherilis before? I've definitely read her stuff before. I don't know if we read an article on here. These days, the idea of meeting a perfect stranger doesn't quite hold the romantic allure it once did, if it ever really did at all. I love this opening. Wow. Could you be a little more like jaded? I mean, I genuinely love that. I love that. Laura says, I swear to God, everything I hear about het relationships sounds like an absolute nightmare. I have a long list of why I don't date men. But like, the main reason is because I have dated men. And I know, and I speak from experience, and I reflect on the experiences I've had. Like, I do not want that again. Like, all of you out there have some food that you tried it once, you tried it, and you didn't like it. You didn't like how it made you feel, or you didn't like how it tasted. And so you never ate that food again. And that was my experience with dating men. And I'm very much like heterosexual, right? I wouldn't even say I'm asexual or any of those things. I'm like actively heterosexual. So it can't be like, oh, well, I tried it and it wasn't for me, and therefore I'm like gay or something, whatever. No, I found it like traumatizing. I've lived with a man twice. I had serious long-term relationships multiple times. I don't expect it to be different because it's been really similar, like, despite, being with different individuals, like, the dynamic has been really similar. And this is it. Dating and having sex with men is dangerous on so many levels too, right? It's dangerous. You can get pregnant. You can get an STD. You could get raped. You could, get worse than that. We risk a lot. What do we gain? I like to look at the world logically, and as an economist, my background is in economics, and it doesn't make any sense because the cost is quite high. The benefit is uncertain at best. Maybe it's kind of low. So, oh my gosh, existential once again. This is like speaking to me exactly. Abuse is a concern, but I find more fear in subsuming of myself that's expected of me. And that is definitely, maybe I will make this video. And I've talked about this a little bit here and there before, but basically, I feel in the relationships that I had, the one universal thing, like even with different men, was losing myself and putting myself always second or last in the relationship, always putting the man first. And I don't want to do that. And I feel that that's generally a necessary part of hetero relationships. And I don't want to do that. I like putting myself first, and I feel like it's very hard to achieve that in a hetero relationship. So it's the same. I think Adrian was commenting about pattern recognition, and it's the same pattern over and over again. Why would you keep doing that? Isn't that what Albert Einstein says is the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? There's just no way I could go into a relationship now with someone the way that I used to think about it and expect a different outcome. And also, I have had my trust so destroyed over and over again. So destroyed. I can never trust a man like I used to trust men, I have no trust. You have to, relationships are built on trust. I would go into a relationship with zero trust. And it actually happened to me. I dated a guy. I lived with guys around like 2012. I trusted him so little. We kind of broke up, got back together, broke up, blah, blah, blah. Eventually we were talking about getting married. I'm so glad we didn't. At the time I was so devastated. I was like crying for like months. I was so devastated. But then it's like looking back, I also don't want to go through that ever again. But anyways, I love this guy so much and I trusted him and I like put my whole heart into that relationship, and he just destroyed my trust to the point where we were rock climbers. And this is an anecdote of Lisa lore. We were driving to the cliff once and I really thought in my head, we're going to go and he's going to kill me and make it look like an accident. And I really believed that's what was going to happen that day. I was like, well, I guess I've lived a good life because I think that this guy's going to kill me and make it look like a climbing accident. And I stayed in that relationship for a long time after that. That's how little trust I had. And eventually it ended. And then I met another guy who was also a climber. And we had a sort of whirlwind romance, but I was never able to really get into it because I had this experience with this guy had totally just destroyed my trust systematically. And I held back. I don't know what that subsequent relationship would have been like if I hadn't held back. I don't know. But I had to hold back for self-preservation because I couldn't put myself in the same position that I had been in the previous relationship. And so, and it had other issues too. That next relationship, we did for almost 2 years and we were sort of like living together. And I got sick in the middle of that relationship. And, as soon as I got sick, he just shut off. Like he shut off any affection towards me or any emotion at all. And that really let me feel my value as a person. Oh, I'm sick, so I have no value in this relationship. And at one point he even said to me, why would I be with you when I could just go and date some healthy woman? And I think, that's like kind of very common situation. Like they say, if a woman gets cancer or something, the man leaves whatever percentage of the time. If a man gets cancer, the woman's very unlikely to leave. Yes, Abby's like great minds think alike, right? How many stories have we heard of women getting cancer or other illness and men cheating and piecing out? Men who stop being attracted to you when you're going through it are the worst. Yeah, and as a person who you feel like this is my partner, I've been through stuff with them on their end and been super supportive. And then the second you need support, they're gone. The second you ask for something or require something, they're out of there. That is what it's so dehumanizing. That's why I always speak about women's humanity and stuff and the way that we're treated. You know, I've experienced it like personally in my own life as the sense that as a woman, you know, you are replaceable in ways men aren't thought to be. I know that in this like community and audience, there are some younger women here who are like, oh, well, like I haven't experienced, you know, I'm het, but I haven't experienced that relationships. And it's like, I haven't. I want to talk about those things and like save women grief, because there's also real grief that comes along with a relationship ending. And that's another reason for me. Like, that's something I'll talk about if I make a video. But, you know, another thing I jotted down on that topic was you know, this idea that the relationship either lasts forever or it doesn't last forever, right? It has to be one of those two things. And they're both bad. They're both bad options. It lasting forever or it not lasting forever. If it lasts forever, you have to be with this person forever. And that to me sounds interminably awful. But if it ends, then it's like very sad and upsetting. And there's usually like some trauma that goes along with it. Adrian, I'm bi, but one of the reasons I've never dated a man, only casual things, was because men. Interesting. Well, I don't know what the dynamic is like if it's different between men. Maybe it's really not that different. It's not to say that there can't be good relationships, even hetero relationships, but like my personal experience have not been good. Then you could say, well, maybe it's just you. You know, well, if that's the case and it is just me, then I still don't want to do it. You know. When men ask me why I hate men, I use that answer. Men. Probably because of men. This is interesting. The prospect of dating men triggers the same safety feature in my brain that attempting to stick my hand in a blender would. When I was like little, when I was like a kid, I used to think of marriage with a feeling of dread. This is a thing that I will have to do someday. And I felt a sense of dread that was gonna, you know, and also I felt that way about being a mom. It's like something I'll eventually have to do and I don't want to. And like, I don't know, looking forward to some appointment you don't want to go to, you know, like, oh, I have to do this thing and I don't want to. Abby says, I'm attracted to men, but also men scare the bejesus out of me. Like the realization they can physically overpower you at any given moment if they feel like it, and you just trust that they won't. I've definitely had that feeling. I've literally had that exact feeling in real life of just, and you know, if you're a het, the next time you're with a man, just meditate on that. You know, I've actually verbalized that to men I've been with. You know, if there's like, if that guy wants to pin you down or something, there's nothing you could do. There's nothing you could do, you know? You just have to hope that he won't. That's not really good enough for me. It's a very frightening and like depressing kind of feeling. Irene is an influencer, trendsetter. I don't get the motivation for women now. I haven't dated a man since way before I discovered radical feminism and before Me Too and all this other stuff. And I can't imagine going out on the dating scene now. You know? Glittering delinquent. Hey, what's up? The amount of justification we feel like we have to do, even amongst ourselves to an extent, is kind of alarming. Yeah, and it's this is like, you know, I meant to say this in my video about why I don't want kids. It's like, I don't really feel the need to justify it to anybody. It's not like I feel like defensive or anything, or like, oh, here's, you know, here's why. It's actually feel very free of that. I just like to talk about why. It's not that I feel that I need to justify it. It's like, actually, I read a comment that was really, really good a few years ago. Someone was saying, you know, so many women will say things like, oh, I'm so busy right now. I have so much going on. I have school, I have work or whatever. I just don't have time to date. And actually, when you free yourself of that and you just say, I just don't want to do it, that's all the reason you need is I don't want to do it. I can elaborate on why I don't want to do it, but all the reason that I need is I don't want to do it. And you free yourself from making those socially acceptable excuses. Like, that's what I need to say in order for people to think that my decision to not date is like socially acceptable. I think in a sense, like some of the gender sexuality nonsense subjected to has sort of normalized the idea of like not wanting to date or being demisexual or things like that, you know, that it is a little easier to talk about this stuff than it used to be. Glorbo says, I think there's so much proof that we all experience in our lives that you can't trust men. Yam Yams adds, the reasons we have memories is to make future decisions. It says a lot that we all have these experiences. I agree. And I think we need to listen. And I think a lot of people are, or a lot of women are. That's why, you know, you hear so many stories of, oh, women aren't getting married. I'm coming across these stories all the time. Oh, birth rates are down and marriage rates are down. Why? Because women realize that what they're putting into relationships is much more than they're getting out of it. They're not benefiting. It's coming at great cost and great risk to them. So why would they do it? So, yeah. I have more I could say about that. But maybe I'll just do a video. Women's abuse is so normalized. I hate it. I agree. It's so ubiquitous. Fear is evolutionary. It's there for a reason. We don't just randomly choose one day to be fearful of men. Totally agree. I'm really like, sorry, I'm itching my face so much. I'm just, ever since, okay, it got really cool here. It was super hot, like 95 degrees for like 2 weeks. And then it's cooled down and now it's like been like 70, which is amazing. But ever since it cooled down, almost immediately since it cooled down, my allergies have just been insane. Like the cooler weather like triggered some mold or pollen or something. It was also super wet. Like we had rain, it was hot, it was rainy. I don't know, man. My allergies have just been insane. My eyes have been all like, swollen and stuff. How can we turn this into, for a prize goes to somebody in the chat who can turn this into like a positive thing? Because I don't want this to just be like, oh, this, man, it's really is like such a downer conversation to be like, we can't trust men. I mean, the positive, I saw another thing. I went on Twitter this morning as I was waiting hours to get that work that I was doing that I mentioned at the beginning of the stream. I was just literally sitting at my desk twiddling my thumbs, and I went on Twitter. I hadn't been on like a week or something or two. It's not like a normal part of my internet path. And I went on Twitter and I just searched, like, I don't follow anybody on Twitter, so I just like search like radical feminism or radfem, and then I just see whatever the top conversations people are having there. Now I forgot like what I was going to mention. I was going to mention something and now I forget. But yeah, if it comes to me, I'll mention it, obviously. I can picture the tweet and I can't remember exactly what it said. Annoying. Oh, yeah. Oh, I remember now. It was a woman and she was saying, radical feminism asks women to give up so much and they get nothing for it. And it asks them to give up beauty routines and they don't get anything in exchange for giving up all this stuff. Asks them to give up, have relationships and whatever, which it doesn't, by the way, but this was this person's perception of it. And I was like, you don't get anything in exchange? Are you kidding me? You get to be liberated. There's like nothing better than that. Like just the thought of being in a relationship and the way that I would just get stomach aches from the anxiety of this guy's going to leave me. I don't experience that on a day-to-day basis. I'm just here. I'm happy. I'm peaceful. I live in peaceful island. I can't see that perspective of a woman saying you don't get anything out of it. Like Irene says, you totally get so much out of it. Oh, you're asking me to give up makeup, but you're not offering me anything. You don't have to spend your time doing makeup anymore. You are literally free. There's nothing better than that. That's the best thing. I save so much money. I save time, effort, energy, psychic torture of myself to try to put myself into some box. Medina says, peace of mind, peace, peaceful island, we just like zen, relaxed. So much time and energy to spend on other things. Freeing yourself from internalized misogyny and self-hatred. Yeah, I just couldn't. I was like, man, this is such a good tweet. And nobody had nobody had said anything like that in the replies. And I was like, this is why I don't go on Twitter, because it's just like so dumb. There were people agreeing with her of being like, oh yeah, rad femmes, they're so restrictive and what you can do with your life and stuff. And it's like, first of all, they're not. We're not. But also, second of all, it's like you stand to gain a lot. Julie says, my blood pressure went back to normal after my divorce. I love being captain of my own ship. It is relaxing to not have to worry about someone else. And see yourself through somebody else's eyes, and just, that's very high on my list, actually, why I don't date men. the pressure of having to be perfect or sexy or not human. Like sometimes I'm sick, sometimes I have like bodily functions as every other woman does, but we're supposed to pretend that we don't. Um, you know, like my body's not perfect. I felt so much pressure when I was in relationships. I felt so much pressure to have a body that looked airbrushed all the time and no, just perfect, you know, no fat, no cellulite. God forbid a man sees you with fat or cellulite on your body. I would be mortified. That was the mindset that I was in. Give that up? Yes, please. I think I will. I would much rather be free of those horrible, toxic thoughts. I don't think there's any relationship that's worth it. Looking back on that and in retrospect, there's nothing. What man is worth that? And they all expect that. They all expect that. Love this, Minka. Rad femmes are so restrictive, as if shaving off all your body hair and painting your face that is much more restrictive. Exactly. It's so backwards. How dare you be human with human dignity? Oh, interesting. My friend whose entire personality revolves around rowing is moving to the desert with her boyfriend, acting like it's no big deal. Sad. Women don't see the cage they're raised in. Glittering delinquent says, get nothing out of it. I found community. My internalized misogyny is reduced. I don't waste emotional energy hating other women because I feel sisterhood. That's really nice. That's really nice. Existential says that, yeah. Well, it's one reason that IBS is so common in women is because of that. I can't even talk about it because it's like, oh, women shouldn't talk about that. It's so embarrassing. But that's a real thing. That's a real actual thing that happens is women actually get physically sick because it's so stigmatized for women to go to the bathroom. Abby says, I'm my own person. My personality and self-worth doesn't come from a man. It's absolutely true. Look it up. Yeah, women are diagnosed more with mental health issues too. And you have to wonder if there's a connection there as well, right? Where do our mental health issues come from? I had an aunt who would wake up every day before her husband to do her makeup. She bragged that he'd never seen her natural face. This is actually also pretty common. Because how, God forbid, we inconvenience a man by making him look at a woman's natural face. I mean, it's just so dehumanizing. We got 5 minutes left, my friends. Any other last topics? Did we like the articles today? I thought it was interesting, but they didn't really go into that much detail. I wonder if that was just the New York Times or like how much detail there is available. It'd be interesting to actually like look at those. Look at the actual lawsuit that was filed. Maybe I should have done that. That would have been interesting. I thought it was sad as hell, but she was proud. Yeah, I could see a woman being proud of that because that's how messed up our minds are. To think that that's where I used to say it all the time. Oh, I haven't put I can't go out yet. I haven't put my face on. I haven't put my face on. Just think about that phrase. I haven't put my face on. I wake up and I have to put my face on. It's so weird. It's all messed up. This is super cringy. A family friend of mine never showed her bare face to her fiance. And then on their honeymoon, she revealed her bare face and called my mom crying because her husband said he felt catfished. That's messed up. These are so awful. My mom knew of a woman whose husband told her he never wanted to see her without makeup and made her sleep in a separate bedroom so he never would. Oh, man. Well, my Red Femmes After Dark, it's come to the time where we must part again until next week. I thank you all for joining me for a lovely chat. Thanks for listening to my sob stories or the teachable moments of my life. Thank you for reading the articles with me and chatting about that. I think it's a super interesting topic. And yeah, I hope you all have a great week. I don't think I'm going to do yoga this week on stream. I have been, good luck with your allergies. Thank you. I actually appreciate that. Glittering Delinquent says, probably unrelated to anything tonight, but I'd like to hear you talk about capitalism, feminism sometime. Also, you know, a topic I've had for like a few years that I wanted to do a video about is minimalism and feminism, which are actually not that different than capitalism and feminism. There's definitely some overlap there. This is so nice. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Julie says your streams are the best. Thank you. Having sob stories with teachable moments is a very female experience. And yeah, I think that's the point of consciousness raising, right? If we hide these things, because I notice, I've seen it, I see it. When women share difficulties of their lives, they are shamed. That's kind of universal. And you have to think, well, why are women shamed for talking about the difficulties of their personal lives? It's so we all think that we're the only people going through this. And consciousness raising hurts the status quo. It hurts the system. So the status quo wants us to never share these stories. That's what Me Too was about. And that movement got squashed like a little bug because it was working. It was working. And I think it's important to share these things. And I do that at risk of being shamed for sharing them or whatever. And I just think anyone who would shame me for sharing the things I do is a weak ass person. Thanks, Nix. Glittering Delinquent says, Rad Femmes After Dark sounds like a cool band name. Abby says, thank you. And I thank you for being here. And all your great comments. All of you, wow. I mean, this wouldn't exist without all of your comments. So thank you for making this with me. That's why female-only spaces are attacked so hard by men, because there's power in them. And when we discuss men's bad behavior, there's so much power in that, because it changes the way we act, and it changes the way we see things, and it changes the way we interact with the world for our better. Thank you, Useless, my mod. one of my mods, for being here. And thanks to the chat. So yeah, we'll be back next week, 1 o'clock again, hopefully. Reddit subs, female antinatalism. That's all I have to say. Just leaving that there. If you want a legit good female feminist sub, it's right there for you. And yeah, that's it. Bye.